Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed this series about Constantine and the conspiracies involving him. There's another one floating around, particularly on TikTok, that I want to address. It's this idea behind history having been whitewashed to remove all but European-looking people from church history. This is an interesting one. When I was first learning church history, like the basic 2,000-year chronology, there were times where I would come across a character or figure that I had only ever seen painted with pale skin, identified as an African. And I'd go, oh wow, that's interesting. And then there were times early on my YouTube channel when I was putting together videos and I'd just type in a random message to get a background picture like, I don't know, Joseph in Egypt. And all the options were white pictures of Joseph. And on one of my multi-million view videos, I got a lot of criticism for about a year, like, hey, how come all your biblical characters look white? And I didn't have a good answer other than to say, hey, that's what I got off Google Images. You know, you're beefing with me, it's with Google Images. But it got me thinking, and I did begin doing research to say, is there any truth to this whitewashing? And here's better questions, because there is clearly something of it. But what are the motives of it? Was it done hatefully to exclude people with higher levels of melanin from the truth? That is not the case, and I can prove it. You see, most of the artwork we have today about Christianity, it comes from the period of time called the Italian Renaissance, which began roughly in the 1450s, went to the late 1500s, 1600. And at the time, it was a period for artists to make a lot of money. And the people who purchased a lot of art back then were like the Roman papacy, right? So you have biblical characters painted to look like the Europeans of the time. In fact, there's a conspiracy theory going around that the picture we know of as Jesus is really Cesare Borgia. Well, that one's easily debunked because all you have to do is look at mosaic art from the Byzantine era back in the 600s and 700s, and you see a darker Jesus. The reason we have this whitewashing isn't because there's a conspiracy afoot to exclude people. It's because every culture you're in, you're going to see the art reflect that culture. When you go to see Muslim art, you're going to see people that look Arab. Or when you go to see African art or the church in Ethiopia, you're going to see people with higher levels of melanin. It's a very natural thing. The reason it became an issue in the 20th century in the West is because America was predominantly formed by European immigrants. Well, in the age of globalization, that's changing. Now you have people coming from all over the world, and they're Americans just like we are, and they begin to ask after 2 or 3 generations, why isn't the art of our religious traditions, why doesn't it reflect us too? So the answer is yes, it does happen. I've done some videos on it. I did the African who saved the Trinity. It's about Athanasius of Alexandria, who was the star pupil of Alexandria and the key figure of the Council of Nicaea. He was an African. He was dark-skinned. He was described as dark-skinned. In fact, there were 11 African popes in the early years of the church. So, yeah, maybe this is something that as time goes on it will be corrected. There's certainly nothing wrong with us thinking about people in terms of the geographic area that they lived in. It's quite simply a fact of where we live in comparison to the sun and the equator. That's quite simply the answer. And art reflects the culture, right? And so the culture reflects art. So I think you're going to start seeing things like that change. I don't think it's purposeful. I don't think it's spiteful. I think we're having discussions about race now that we just wouldn't have had 50 years ago, 100 years ago. I would hope that a family of color would look at Jesus the same way they see themselves, right? Just like when I look in my mind's eye at Jesus, I see someone that, you know, looks like me, or the image that is popularly done of him. Now, images of Jesus. You can't make the Cesare Borgia arguments, and you can't claim the whitewashing, because there are images of Jesus going way back through many cultures, and every time you see it, he looks like the culture that painted it. So I think the way to solve this problem really, if it's something that interests you, would be to go to Google and let them know that this needs to be remedied. There needs to be a greater diversity in the images shown of religious figures. I mean, I guess that's how you do that. If you're interested in learning more about it, here are some videos of mine you can watch. One of them I can't remember the name of, so I'm going to have to put it in the video description, but I've done Athanasius, I've done the secret history of the church in Ethiopia, and I will, after I put this video up, make a list of them in the video description so that you can learn more about it and understand why it's an issue, and and talk about it responsibly and respectfully. It clearly isn't think about it. Conspiracies happen every day. We find them in church history all the time. But the idea of a conspiracy that takes place over centuries, it just doesn't happen. I mean, think about how many kings have children and can't even get the generation one removed from them, their own child, to act right, to take over a kingdom, right? So it doesn't work that way. Anyway, I hope this has helped a little bit. I hope that everybody who views my channel gets a lot from it and knows that I'm interested in the truth above all else. I'm not interested in anything but that, right? Truth for me is what matters the most. So, yep, we got to admit there's something happening to it, but the motives behind it are what we need to look at. So check the video description, watch some of the videos on this topic, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks.